Close your eyes and imagine waking up in the middle of the night. Not because of a nightmare, but because you feel something is watching you. Not breathing, not moving, just waiting. You don't scream, you can't, because deep down, you already know what it is. For centuries, humans have shared the same fear. Across borders, languages, and religions. A fear of something that looks human, sounds human, but is not alive. We gave it many names: Strigoi, Nosferatu, Upir, Vampire, different words, same terror. But here's the question no one asks. Why did the same creature appear everywhere? Long before books, movies, or the internet, this wasn't fiction. This was panic. The earliest vampires were very different from the creatures we imagine today. In ancient Mesopotamian and early Eastern European folklore, beings similar to vampires were not always evil. Many were believed to be restless spirits of the dead, souls who had unfinished business, improper burials, or were forgotten by their families. In some Slavic traditions, certain ancestral spirits were even believed to protect villages, guard livestock, and watch over their bloodlines. Blood was not seen purely as something violent. It represented lineage, inheritance, and spiritual connection. Only later, as fear of death and disease grew, did these returning spirits begin to transform into something darker. Religious and cultural changes gradually redefined them as cursed beings rather than guardians. The vampire did not begin as a monster. It became one as human fear reshaped the story. Many vampire legends were born in graveyards. During the Middle Ages, when disease spread through villages without explanation, people sometimes dug up recently buried bodies, suspecting the dead were somehow responsible for the continuing deaths. What they discovered terrified them. Because of natural decomposition, corpses often appeared swollen, with dark fluid around the mouth and nose. As skin receded, hair and nails appeared longer, creating the illusion that the body was still growing. To modern science, these are normal biological processes. To people living centuries ago, they looked like undeniable proof that the dead were feeding on the living. As a result, extreme burial rituals became common: stakes through the heart, stones placed in the mouth, or bodies burned to prevent their return. The vampire myth was not born from imagination alone. It was born from misunderstanding death itself. Across ancient civilizations, blood was believed to carry life itself. In Egypt, Persia, Greece, and many early cultures, blood symbolized vitality, soul, and divine energy. Warriors believed consuming an enemy's blood could transfer strength. Certain rituals treated blood as a sacred substance capable of renewing life. These beliefs gradually shaped the image of a being that could survive by drinking the life force of others. The vampire became the ultimate symbol of stolen vitality, a creature that refused to die because it continuously absorbed the life of the living. Even in later centuries, nobles and mystics searched for methods to preserve youth, sometimes experimenting with strange medical practices involving blood. The vampire represents humanity's ancient belief that life can be taken, transferred, and extended. Some of the people once accused of being vampires were simply ill. Diseases such as tuberculosis caused victims to grow pale, cough blood, and weaken family members who lived nearby, creating the illusion that a single individual was slowly draining the life from others. Rare conditions like porphyria created extreme sensitivity to sunlight, skin damage, and unusual physical symptoms that seemed unnatural to earlier societies. Without medical knowledge, communities searched for explanations. Fear often turned the sick into suspects, and suspicion sometimes turned into violence. The tragic reality is that many so-called vampires in history were likely misunderstood patients suffering from diseases no one yet understood. When knowledge is absent, fear writes its own explanations. The elegant vampire we recognize today is surprisingly modern. During the 18th and 19th centuries, European literature began transforming the vampire from a rotting corpse into a sophisticated, intelligent, and seductive figure. Writers use the vampire as a metaphor for temptation, forbidden desire, and social fears that could not be openly discussed at the time. Instead of representing decay, the vampire began representing dangerous attraction, beauty that hides destruction, charm that leads to loss of control. This literary transformation permanently changed popular culture. From that point forward, vampires were no longer only creatures to fear. They became figures audiences were strangely drawn to. The monster became fascinating, and fascination helped the legend survive. Most people believe vampires exist only in ancient legends. But the myth never truly disappeared, it evolved. In recent decades, researchers have documented small subcultures of individuals who identify as real vampires. They do not claim to be supernatural creatures. Instead, many describe feeling physically or psychologically better after consuming small, consensually obtained amounts of blood, or after what they call energy feeding. Scientists often interpret these behaviors as psychological identity formation, medical conditions such as severe anemia, or symbolic rituals tied to community belonging. Yet the existence of these groups reveals something fascinating. The vampire is no longer just folklore. It has become a modern identity and cultural archetype. At the same time, rare medical disorders that cause extreme sensitivity to sunlight, pale skin, and chronic fatigue continue to mirror the symptoms once associated with vampires. Centuries ago, people suffering from these conditions were feared or accused of being undead. Today we understand the science, but the imagery remains. The vampire legend survived not because monsters were real, but because misunderstood humans were. Every age creates its own version of the vampire. In the past, vampires explained disease and mysterious death. Later, they became symbols of sin and moral fear. In modern culture, they transformed into elegant immortals, representing youth, beauty, and the dream of eternal life. Despite these changes, the meaning underneath has never shifted. Vampires represent humanity's deepest anxieties: fear of death, fear of aging, fear of losing control, and the secret desire to live forever. As long as humans continue searching for ways to extend life, preserve youth, and defeat mortality, the vampire myth will remain part of our culture. Because the vampire does not survive in graveyards, it survives in the human imagination. And legends rooted in human desire never truly die. For centuries, the vampire has changed its face, from corpse to demon to immortal legend. But perhaps the reason the story survives is not because such creatures ever walked the earth, but because they remind us of something we rarely admit. Humanity has always feared death and secretly dreamed of escaping it. And legends born from human fear never truly disappear.